Hello, everybody, and welcome to our brand new podcast. It's called Balds, Beards, and Bald Heads, as you can see from the two of us. I'm Gary Morris. I'm joined with my fellow co-host here, Niall Bromley. We're here to talk to you about all things sports, and today is very geared towards combat sports. And you're not going to blame us for it today, anyway, when you see who we have on the show with us. Basically, we will shortly be joined by a UFC legend called Marcus Davis. I'm sure most know him. For anybody who doesn't, he is the Irish hand grenade, and he is an absolute badass. So we're so excited to have him on board. Firstly, though, I'm going to let Niall tell you a little bit about himself.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. As Gary says, it's great to have such a big name for our first podcast, and hopefully he has to many more up and coming. A quick thank you to our sponsor. So our main sponsor, Nemesoto.com, Machado beard oil. You can probably tell I haven't used it yet, but Gary has. You can probably see he's got a lovely primed and neat beard compared to me. Stephen Beecroft Photography as well. Thank you very much. Also a big thank you to our editor, Martin, Justin for the logo, and also Andrew Bradley for the intro music as well. So thanks for everyone who's given us a hand in getting this up and running, and hopefully it could be a bit of a success, a bit of fun, and a bit of seriousness as well.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Niall. What I'm going to do, I'm going to bring Marcus straight in, and we'll get the show on the road. Obviously, he's the star of the show today. So I've admitted him into the room here, and we'll get Marcus. He's just joining in now. Marcus,
hello, Marcus.
How are you today?
I'm good, man. How are you guys?
Really, really good, man. Really, really good. Just firstly, want to thank you for coming on the show with myself and Niall today. How's your morning going, first of all?
It's going well. I had a couple clients this morning, and now I'm home just chilling out before I have to go back in and finish out my day.
Nice, awesome.
So what is it you're doing now then, Marcus? Is it like training or?
Yeah, so I got a lot of jobs, but in particular, I work as a biomechanist and a personal trainer and stuff for a private PT place in Raleigh, North Carolina. And that just means like it's not like a gym that you can get a membership to set for only private training. And I work with different kinds of clients. You know, some are like I have a client that's a spinal fusion. I've got a client that had cancer. I've had a lot of people that have been injured, and then I have clients that might have been in shape when they were younger, but then as they've gotten older, they've had some issues and stuff. So I work specifically with them on a private basis, where they're not in a gym setting where there's a lot of other people around, right? So some people get intimidated when they're in a gym and there's a bunch of guys running around, with chalk and screaming and hollering. So, but yeah, so I work with them there, and we set, different goals and stuff, and I help them with that, and I assist them with, their diet, their, micronutrients and stuff. And then I'm the head coach for the corporate company out here, Tap Out. I teach Greg Jackson's mixed martial arts program for them. So he did a deal through that company where they would teach his martial arts program. So I run the one in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I own a combatives company here. So I train. I'm one of the trainers they bring in for what's called the NCTOA, which is the North Carolina Tactical Officers Association, and that's the SWAT teams. So all the different SWAT teams from all the different departments and all the different counties belong to that organization. So it's kind of like a brotherhood thing. And then I've trained 8 of the different departments. I did Clayton PD's SCAT training last year, which is SCAT stands for Subject Control Arrest Techniques. So I do that too. And I was doing some stuff with the military before this, but now I've just kind of stayed with law enforcement. And I was also a law enforcement officer, but I no longer do that. I just now is training them and training general people, and then obviously I'm still training professional and amateur fighters.
Wow.
Excellent. It's a long list.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, fair play to you, Marcus. Like, and obviously for myself, I obviously know who you are. I followed your career basically from the Ultimate Fighter days when you were kind of brought to my eyes, I suppose I would say. You know, for other people that might not know you, though, you've a long list of names there that you've fought previously, and obviously you've fought over in our shores quite a bit, be it Ireland, Northern Ireland, and in the UK. It seemed like it was a bit of a hobby of yours at the time, was it? Or was it just luck?
Honestly, I would say it was luck. The UFC, it was my dream as a little boy to go and fight in Ireland. And then when I wasn't boxing anymore, I just assumed it was never going to happen. And when I started doing MMA, I certainly didn't think MMA was going to reach all the way over to Ireland. And then when the UFC started to make that move over there, they brought it to my attention and said, "Hey, listen, we don't know if you'd be interested in going over to Europe and possibly fighting, but you just need to know you're going to probably lose about 20% of your purse right off the bat. They're going to take their chunk, so you're going to lose a little bit of money." And I just said, "Are you going to Ireland?" And they said, "Yeah, we're going to Ireland." And I said, "Yeah, I'll go." So obviously those first time I had to fight, the first match was in Belfast.
Jason Tan,
but,
yeah.
It was right. So, but my goal was obviously to end up in Dublin. That's where I wanted to be. And then, then they sent me over to England, and then finally, towards the end there, I got to have that happen. And I actually I keep my walkout saved on my phone. Because I still to this day I get the hair stands up on my arms and on my back. I just get the electricity that I felt that night. So I have that saved on my phone, and I just listen to it every now and then when I need to, be reminded. Or yeah,
I can understand it. I was basically probably 15 meters from you as you were walking out, and you could see how excited you were, obviously, coming out to fight Chris Lytle in Dublin. It was UFC 93 for anybody who wants to look it up. Just quite a lot of videos of Marcus's entrance into the fight, and when House of Pain Jump Around came on, the place just erupted. Tell me how that felt, standing in the background, not even outside yet, just standing in the back. You've done this at this stage, you'd maybe done it 15, 20 times, 25 times already. How did that one particular time feel?
Yeah, I can't really describe it. And a lot of people don't know, but I was deathly ill. That was the time when the bird flu was going around. I actually had it, and we didn't know it. But 2 days before the weigh-in, I always have to cut not a lot, but it's a good amount of weight to make weight. I didn't have to cut anything. I stayed right in my hotel room the second I landed in Belfast, vomiting and it coming out. If I had a hole in my body, it was coming out of that hole. And I lost all that weight. And, Mark Delagrati said that night when he was walking me out to the cage, for those that don't know, Mark Delagrati was my coach. When he was walking me out, he felt like he was walking a man on death row. Didn't think that, this was going to go well. And I really think that, standing there in the back and taking that in and then hearing everything, and then that walk to the cage, and then how everybody was, screaming and cheering while the fight was going on. I think I fed off that. It did something and it pushed me through. And then after that, I was like sick for about 6 months. Like it took me forever to shake it. And so it was a real serious thing, but that made it that much more, prevalent, more important to me, how that all came out. I mean, things happen for a reason, and I think that did. It's funny because I just saw Chris Lytle over the weekend. So I was
Crazy.
working a Fighter's Corner, and it was a pay-per-view fight for a smaller organization over here. And I had the main event. And when I went over there, Chris Lytle was the commentator for the event. So we kicked it off and just started chatting and stuff. So it was good to see him. He's a good guy.
Did Dublin come up?
No, we didn't talk about it. We just talked about, how things have changed, how, there's more people involved in MMA now when you look at the UFC that are actually, more like athletes than they are like fighters. And I know some people would take offense to that, but that's just the way it is. It's a different time. Like, what me growing up, people aren't growing up like I grew up or like Chris Lytle grew up anymore. It's not really the same thing. So unless you live like in a area that's not really sheltered or policed a lot, a ghetto area over here, you're not in the kind of scraps that we were growing up. And, there was no big deal. We played games like King of the Mountain and stuff like that, where you were punching kids and throwing them off a friggin' hill, trying to murder somebody and throwing them off a hill. And everybody was like, and if you cried, guys would go, "What are you, a fucking sissy?" You couldn't, if you showed emotions when I was a kid, there's certain things you can't say anymore, but there were derogatory names for you that I'll just use sissy again, that people would use if you were whining and had a tear running out of your eyes because you got hurt. Nobody shows, either their hurt or compassion for another individual. When I grew up, if you showed compassion, that was a weakness. So where things are obviously a lot different now. And
Absolutely.
I too softened a lot. I mean, obviously from being a father and having children and everything. So it's changed me quite a bit.
But, absolutely. I can imagine. I can only imagine being your daughter's boyfriend coming to meet you for the first time.
Yeah, I've got 3 daughters. So, and I have one that's 30 and she's married to her first boyfriend. And then I have a daughter that's 20 and she's still with her first boyfriend, and they signed an agreement through the church that they would stay, virgins until they got married. And then I have a daughter who's 14 that almost gives me a heart attack every day. But, she's crazy, but she's really good. Really, I'm just lucky. And then I have one son, and I'm lucky. All my kids are much, much better people than I was when I was their age.
Well, look, I don't think you're that bad of a person, so I'm gonna stand in your corner for that one anyway. Marcus, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna take it back into your career a little bit. Obviously, everybody loves a walk down memory lane, Obviously, your introduction to the UFC was through the Ultimate Fighter Season 2. Right. From there, you went back out. You had a couple more fights. You got a big win streak, and you came back into the UFC. Obviously, had quite a considerable. It was an 11-fight win streak, as far as I'm remembering.
It was the 13 or 14, I think.
13 or 14.
I don't remember, but something like that. Yeah. It was
absolutely.
6 of them were in the UFC. So I think there were 6 outside the UFC and 6 in the UFC. But yeah.
Brilliant. And obviously, a lot of them came in Europe. You had Jason Tan in Belfast, you had Paul Taylor, Jess Leodon, Mike Swick, Paul Kelly. Then obviously you had Dublin with Chris Lytle, and then you had a fight in Germany that there was quite a bit of a build up to. Do you want to tell our viewers and listeners what happened here?
Yeah, so they had set up a fight between me and Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy, I think, I might be wrong on this, I think he requested to fight me because he was pissed off that I was smashing all these English guys in their home territory. I was undefeated in England. And so wasn't happy about that. And then it got personal when he started this thread on one of those MMA, websites that have those I don't know, the
Boards.
chats and red stuffs or whatever. Yeah. And he just like asked everybody to make, to put me in the gayest looking picture that they could. And so he like they would take like these gay porn like photos, and they're doing that, and they're putting my face in there with people like George Gurgel, who was my best friend and my jiu-jitsu coach at the time. Rich Franklin, because Rich Franklin was the coach of my season, and he was also a good friend of mine, and George was his jiu-jitsu coach. So he was doing all this stuff and thought it would be funny. And
it wasn't. At the end of the day, you have kids.
Yeah, and that's what made it. So the thing that made me upset about it wasn't, if it was something that would have been, that I knew that nothing would have ever happened and my kids wouldn't have seen anything like that. But the difference was I had older children who were, I had a son that was in his mid-teens, and then I had a daughter that was, I think about maybe 20 at the time. And then I had kids that were younger, my other two daughters that were younger, and they were going to a private Christian school. So this obviously came out. And so when that happened, I lost my shit. So I really, like at that point, I had told everybody, told the UFC that I didn't care if I was going to lose my job. I just didn't care. I said that if I saw him in the hotel, if I saw him on the streets, if I saw him before that fight happened, we were going to fight. That, I'd said anytime if I see him, he and I are going to fight. So I believe that's the only time and might be, I think it's the only time ever they've ever then not allowed the fighters to even be at the press conferences. So they didn't even let us go to the weigh-ins together. They didn't even, or to the conferences anyways. They kept us apart the whole time. And that was because they also did like a call where you call in and they have all these reporters online. So it was me and Dan Hardy, both in this like hub, and there's a bunch of reporters asking us questions or trying to. And then when I heard his voice, I just lost it. And I just started screaming and hollering and telling him that I was going to kill him, and that, that I didn't care what happened in the fight, that if I saw him, every time I saw him after the fight, no matter what happened, him and I were going to get into a fight. And, and I just lost my mind. So you're right.
I can understand.
Are you glad now though, Marcus? Are you like glad now that you didn't see him before the fight? Like looking back.
Yeah. I am because I was really volatile at that time. And I had some other, I had all kind, you always have something going on. There's some other stuff that was going on in my life at that time. And I was dealing with a lot of injuries and stuff. I had bulging discs at C5, 6, 7, and 8. I had spinal stenosis. I had impingement syndrome in my shoulders. And I had some issues and stuff. So I was just out of it. But, that first round, I just went out and just basically clobbered him. I threw him against the cage, and I picked him up and I threw him on the ground, and I started beating him up on the ground. And I think in that first round, I had every position you can have. I took his back, I mounted him, I had side mount, I think, and then, I think that, I think the way it ran. So a lot of the, afterwards I had gone and I looked at all the other people outside of the judges that had judged the fight, and the box, what is it called? Box
rec, is it? Is it box
no,
rec?
It's the one that counts the shot, that counts the hits and stuff. I can't remember what it was called, but it's one of those boxing ones that counts like how many, because it was before the UFC was counting like headshots and body shots and all that stuff. But they had me like way ahead on everything that I had, as far as shots landed. And then Fox at that time, Fox Sports wasn't doing MMA, but they had people, watching it and analysis, and they had me winning it, and they had a bunch of people winning it. So I went out of that fight with a real bad taste because I lost the split decision. And
really
one of the
close.
judges actually, which kind of pissed me off too, came up to me. I don't know if it was a year or whatever, but it was a while after, in the airport, and said, I wanted to talk to you. I was one of the judges that judged that fight, and I wanted to tell you, why, I picked that and why I went with him, and we argued about it a little bit, and then he sent me an email, and I sent one back to him, and then he sent me this book that, anyways, but it was a hard one to get over. It was real tough. And then since then, I've actually talked to Dan on the phone. We've done a video talk, not from anybody, not the UFC, or it was literally a personal thing between him and I. And we talked about it and kind of crushed it and everything. And, it was
That's
that.
nice to hear.
I just, congratulated him on, his success with, his, announcing and the stuff he's doing for the UK with the UFC. So, but I did see that he's trying to, I think he called out Cowboy Cerrone recently, said he was thinking about coming back and having a fight. And I saw something on that, but
that'd be an interesting one. That would be absolutely an interesting one. One thing I was going to say, I didn't actually know about the injuries leading up to that fight, which makes it even more impressive that it was such a close fight, because if you look at that fight, which you lost by split decision, only 9 months later, Dan went on to fight probably the greatest of all time in the sport, George St. Pierre. And they went to a decision. That was 9 months after you fought this guy.
Yeah. On
some people's cards, beat him. And then he went and had quite a close fight with George, So it's the fact that you were injured going into that fight makes it even more impressive in my eyes. Anyway, speak on the topic of comebacks.
Stayed with me forever.
Yeah, I can imagine. On the topic of comebacks, I did see there back in October you were supposed to have a comeback fight. Is it a comeback, or is it just there's still fire in the belly?
A one and done kind of deal. It was because the stuff that led up. So a lot of people don't, because you don't talk, you don't go out and you don't tell people how injured you are, because, then they're not going to let you fight when they find out that you're hurt. So I ended up tearing this retina a couple times in my left eye. And then when I quit, I had double vision in my eye. So I used to have horizontal double vision, and then when I decided to retire, I got hit in that eye again, and when I opened my eyes up, went vertical. So it went from horizontal to vertical double vision. It scared the hell out of me. So I had problems with me. I had also superior oblique muscle palsy and third cranial nerve palsy in the eye, and I had just had all these problems, lower lumbar fasciitis syndrome. So it just went on and on and on. And then I started to get really sick for a while, feeling feverish and sick. And this went on for a long time. And then I found out that I had, from my massive weight cuts, I developed food allergies. My body couldn't break down certain foods. So I had to change my diet and everything. And so what ended up happening is I got smart and I retired. And then when I retired, my focus became more on, educating myself on a lot of different things, but taking care of myself, and then being smart about where I went to get treatment, because there's so many doctors that don't know that there's so many doctors that don't know what they're doing. I've had, not just myself, but with my wife, stuff that could be almost malpractice. So I just can't stand doctors to a point. And I ended up, taking care of myself, learning how to fix everything. I fixed everything but my eye. And then I sought out the the most popular and best rated surgeon here in North Carolina. And I had my eye fixed a couple years ago now, and had the eye repaired. So now for the last, I'm going to say like 2 years at least, I have no injuries anymore. So everything has been healed. The only reason why I was going to do that fight was because I was like, you know what? I didn't leave on my own terms. I was basically driven out of fighting because of these injuries that just compiled, that started in about 2008. And then from 2008 on, it just kept adding a new injury, a new injury, a new injury. So things just got worse. And now I'm injury free, and I've been doing nothing but training, both myself physically and training other fighters. And, when I was Tim Boach's coach for the last, 4 years of his career, when he didn't have sparring partners, I was lacing up and I was getting in there with that monster. So
absolutely.
I've been doing it the whole time. So, and everybody, like Tim and those guys that I was training and I was training with, and like right now I train the number one featherweight here in North Carolina, and he just won the title for one of these other organizations, and he beat a guy that was on the contender series for the UFC to win that title. All these guys that I train and everything all said to me, "Oh my God, imagine if you were to fight now, imagine now," because of how, I just still with all the guys here, all these young guys, I trash them. Like I spar with all these guys here, kickboxers, well-known guys. And I hold back.
Well, that's it. You're still the Irish hand grenade at the end of the day. That never leaves you. That absolutely never leaves you. And, I can fully relate to that because, as you know, obviously I fought professionally too. We've had a sparring session, if you remember that one. I don't know if you do or not.
I remember.
One of the only men to drop me. One of the only men ever to drop me with a knee. And we weren't even going that hard. It was accidental out of that, which I can only imagine how you break people when you really want to hit them, But yeah, I still have that fire in my belly because I was forced out too. So I completely relate to that. But look, I do know Niall and a lot of our viewers that have been interacting with us on social media. They've been asking a lot of questions. So we've a couple of kind of personalized questions from some of our viewers here. So go ahead there, Niall.
Yeah, so basically, Marcus, when we announced that we had you coming on, we had a lot of interest. Obviously, we got a lot of your fans tweeting us and messaging us. And I've just picked a few of the questions we got. So Anthony's basically asked, what are the biggest challenges mentally leading up to a fight?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is this, all the physicality, happens in that. I'm just going to use 10 weeks for your training camp. I know some just do 6, some 8. I'm going to use 10. So I do a 10-week training camp. Everything for those 8 out of the 10 weeks, that's all your physical stuff, right? So you're doing your strength and conditioning, your aerobic energy, your fight specific stuff, right? Your grappling, your wrestling, and all that. That's all important, and that has to take place. You can't get any faster or stronger in that last 2 weeks to 10-day period. If you think you can, it's not going to, right? What you would do in that period is very small and incremental as far as the physicality. So the main thing is, where is your head, right? So from that last 10-day period, all you can do physically is end up hurting yourself, right? You could injure yourself if you try to push yourself too hard. Anything can happen, right? So in that last period of that tapering, everything's mental. And then you want to keep in mind that nothing matters how well you performed in camp. If you were in camp and you were mashing everybody, that's great. Or if you were getting your ass kicked from everybody, that sucks. All that matters is, who are you that moment in that cage when they announce your name and you look across at the guy in the corner and neither one of you want to get half a paycheck, and you're about to go in there and fight that guy, who are you at that moment? That's all that matters, because that's going to dictate all the decisions and everything that you do going into that fight. So, right, that's it. So if you're mentally broken, if your will is broken, you're not going to perform. This here, this up here, my brain has to convince me to get out of bed to train every day. Otherwise, I could just send my body go do the work. So this is the most important thing is your brain.
Yep. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Mesmerized by that. We've got another one here. Connor asks, what do you make of MMA fighters crossing over to the WWE and vice versa? Now, you actually did appear on TNA, didn't you?
Yeah.
A long time ago. Yeah. So what do you kind of make of that then? Do you think it works? Do you think it's a bit silly? I don't know. What's your take?
And you got to be able to make money. And it's a sad, like, I hate seeing is not a lot of people make, transfer out of martial arts or out of MMA like I did. I know so many people that, they try to go back to it because they're not making a living. They can't, right? There's nothing else to do. Whereas, with me, I was already, educated on the fitness end and all of that, and had so many different certifications and stuff, and I had the background in law enforcement and all that. So I had an easy segue out, and I owned a bunch of gyms too. So, but I know a lot of fighters that don't have that. So having the WWE or whatever there to be able to, have another way of income rather than having nothing. And so I don't care, I'm not, it wouldn't be something for me. I did it that one time just because they asked me to. Yeah. But it wasn't something that I wanted to do, and I wouldn't do now, obviously. But
and the WWE hasn't got any weight classes. It might be for me.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, brilliant. So just one more question we've got then. Sure. Have you got any superstitions before a fight?
No, I don't. I'm not a very superstitious guy. I mean, I think that, you make your own luck. And I don't believe that there's some kind of like, mystical force out there that's going to either, help me in a fight or hurt me in a fight. So I think it's up to me to make the decisions in there. So.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different. I mean, I before I play a football game or watch my team play or whatever, I always put a special pair of socks on or something like that I've got. Then you put, I suppose, everybody's different, aren't they?
So I have a different outlook on that. So that is so one of the things that my education goes in is like the brain, is how the brain works. So that is what I would refer to as, I know in your head, you kind of think of that as a ritual, but it's also known as in your brain, as far as your brain and your associations in your brain, as what you call a mental anchor. So there's a lot of fighters that have mental anchors. So if you ever watch Rashad Evans fight, if you ever watch him right before the fight starts, before they call him out, he's pinching his nipples all the time. If you ever watch him, he's pinching his nipples. And the reason why he does that, he only does it when he fights, and it's because it's a sensitive area. When he pinches them, he feels it, and his brain goes, "Oh my God, it's time to fight." So even though I'm not superstitious, if you remember, every time they called me, I'd put my hand out with my thumb up like this, and I was moving back and forth, and I keep my hand like that, and they'd say, "The Irish hand grenade," and I'd have my hand up. That was a mental anchor, because the second my hand went up and I was doing that, my brain went, "Guess what? It's time to fight." So I only put my hand, like me doing this right now, looking at you guys, showing you my hand like this, I feel like murdering somebody, right? So this already puts me in a mood and in that mindset of it's time to fight, because my brain is anchored to that. So that may be one of the things is, when you do that sock thing, your brain goes, time to play. It's time to go out there and perform. And so I think I think it's less of a superstition, but it's your brain looking for the relaxation of saying, or switching gears, right? So sometimes like, you got to wear different uniforms. When I come home, I'm daddy and I'm a husband. But when I leave this house, I'm the coach, I'm the trainer, right? So it's kind of like your way of putting on your metaphorical uniform.
Yeah. Oh well, I agree in a sense. It's just like you say, everyone's different, but I do agree with that. It's just I've always had my lucky socks, so it's what I do. But yeah, and just finally, Marcus, I just wanted to ask you about the transition from going from boxing to MMA, because I mean your boxing record is pretty unbelievable, to be fair. I mean 20 fights, 17 wins, 12 by way of knockout, only one defeat. Just what was it that made you think no MMA, and what was the transition like going from boxing to MMA?
So I had signed kind of like a bad contract, and it took me a while to win it in court, and I ended up beating the company that I was with, and it was dubbed a contract of slavery. And the whole, don't get me wrong, I loved boxing at that time because I was a fighter, and I looked at it, and it was the only thing that was available that was fighting, and I was already a professional boxer when the first UFC happened. So it wasn't, I didn't have time to train or that wasn't something that was happening. So obviously I was intrigued because of at that time, it was the no rules. You could headbutt, you could do everything but eye gouge. You could still attack the groin. So I was really interested in that and I was doing a lot of combative stuff. So they never really, they talked about me being a boxer, but in their early 90s all the way through, and still right now, I do a lot of training in it, but I did a lot of Filipino martial arts stuff. So I did Jeet Kune Do, I did Panatukan, I did some Silat stuff, Dumag, which is Filipino wrestling and stuff. So I did a lot of that stuff for the combative end of it. So when I had that chance to go into, MMA, I jumped to it, and I kind of left boxing behind because I got such a bad taste in my mouth. And as far as transferring over, there's a lot of things you can do in boxing that you can't do in MMA. And so you got to change your stance. A lot of guys keep that, what would be called your coronal or frontal plane stance, a very, staggered stance. And in MMA, you square up a little bit more where your hips are not quite pointing at the target, but they're more pointing at the target. Because in boxing, your hips typically point laterally. They don't point at your opponent. So because all you're doing is punching. So you're okay as you're multiplanar, you're turning, right? So you're in that frontal plane or coronal plane. Then you're turning, now you're in your sagittal. And as you're moving, you're on a transverse plane. So you're striking and trying to keep your targets out of line. But you can't check kicks. You can't sprawl. And in boxing, you can bob and weave. You got to be careful about bobbing and weaving in MMA. I mean,
eat a knee.
Right. You'll eat a knee, eat a kick. You can eat a kick. You can if you're close, you can get caught in a clinch, or you can get caught in like a guillotine choke or something. There's way too many things that can happen that can't happen in boxing. And as soon as you grab somebody in boxing, the guy comes in and goes, break, 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 and break chop. So they're not the same sport. So it hasn't been an easy transition for guys that had box. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, if you look at it, there's two guys that transferred over from boxing and did all right. And that was me and Chris Lytle. Chris Lytle was 13-1 as a professional boxer. And but James Toney didn't, right? So yeah. James Toney, who is an unbelievable world champion boxer, I don't even think he could spell MMA. He sucked. So,
yeah, he was a disaster against Randy that day. Like,
Marcus, thank you ever so much. Listen, we're going to have to round it up because we're running out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We appreciate it so much.
Hey, man,
so
anytime.
Thank you very much.
Really, really appreciate it, Marcus. Great speaking to you again. Okay, my friend.
All right, guys.
All right.
Be safe.
Thank you, Marcus.
Have a good one.
You be safe. Right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Good luck, guys. Bye-bye.
You too, man. What a guy. What a guy.
Did. So I could have sat there for another hour easily.
Maybe we should speak to Marcus about doing a part 2. That's what I'm thinking at the minute. But anyway, though, I don't know. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining in. We did have a few more points, but as I say, we are running out of time, so we don't have it long enough. So I've been Niall Bromley with Gary Morris. Just one more time, a thank you to our sponsors. Thank you everyone who's getting involved. Please like, share, retweet, do everything you can to help us. And we'll do everything we can to help you by trying to get some bumper guests on.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.